Hello and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to another video. If you are new to this channel, my name is Frank Zhu, and I'm a college professor teaching sociology, history, and philosophy. I'm also an award-winning landscape photographer. Many great thinkers are remembered for a few sentences they said. Socrates, for example, is remembered for saying, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Jean-Jacques Rousseau is well known for saying, "Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains." Thomas Jefferson is best remembered for saying, "All men are created equal." By the way, if you are interested, you may want to check out my videos about those great thinkers. Voltaire, who is the subject of my discussion in today's video, is remembered for many brilliant sentences. For example, he said, "If God had not existed, it would have been necessary to invent him." Here is another example which is perhaps more famous. "I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." Who was Voltaire? What made him a great thinker? Even though you don't know about Voltaire, you will be surprised if I tell you that you may have a lot in common with Voltaire. For example, if you believe that the universe was created by God, but God plays no role in your life because you don't read the Bible or go to church, you are like Voltaire. If you stand for religious tolerance, you agree with Voltaire. If you insist that everyone should follow reason rather than authorities, you are a follower of Voltaire. If you love writing and put a lot of philosophy into your writings, you are following in his footsteps. If you have watched my video about Jean-Jacques Rousseau, it should be easier to understand Voltaire because they were both French, living at the same time and sharing many philosophical ideas. Voltaire was born François-Marie Marouet in Paris in 1694. He was already a brilliant student at an early age and wanted to become a writer. But his name, Marouet, did not sound so great to him. A more important reason why he didn't like this name, I think, was that he had a strained relationship with his father and wanted to distance himself from the family. So he changed his name to Voltaire. No one is sure why he chose this particular name, but he used it throughout the rest of his life, writing poetry, novels, philosophical essays, and history books until he died in 1778. By the age of 24, Voltaire had already established his reputation as a poet. However, in the intellectual world, he was better known for his revolutionary thinking. His ideas about religion in particular were radical and became the center of discussions for many people. As most people did in his time, he also believed that God existed. However, his reason for believing in the existence of God was different from others. "This is no matter of faith, but of reason," he wrote. And the reason was simple and obvious, he argued, because there must be someone or something that created the universe, and that person or thing was God. But for Voltaire, God did not play any role in the human world. So there were no acts of God, and there was definitely no point in praying. In spite of this deistic belief, Voltaire also believed that some sort of religious belief was necessary. He declared, "If God had not existed, it would have been necessary to invent him." What he was saying is that even if God did not exist, humans would create a concept of God anyway for the purpose of providing meaning, comfort, and social order to themselves. What he was also saying was that religion was created by human beings. Voltaire was strongly opposed to the Catholic Church and saw it as a source of ignorance and superstition. In his eyes, fighting and killing each other for different religious doctrines was stupid and irrational, because all religions were man-made after all, and only served the purpose of promoting human kindness. Different religions should coexist in peace, because the plurality of religions would lead to a more peaceful society. Voltaire's philosophical thinking was also reflected in his novels. One of his best-known novels was named Candide, which tells the story of a young man named Candide who goes through a series of hardships in his search for happiness. While Voltaire wrote it in a narrative way, he also wrote it as a philosophical argument. It was his answer to the so-called problem of evil. To a number of thinkers of his time, God was perfect, and the world he created was perfect too. For them, God was always good and all-powerful. The reason why ordinary people saw the existence of evils, they argued, was not because God was not good or powerful, but because the ordinary people did not understand God's grand plan. But Voltaire rejected such argument. He said, a perfect God did not exist, and the world was far from perfect. By writing the novel Candide, he pointed out that evils and horrors were signs of human cruelty and nature's weakness. Voltaire's writings had tremendous impact on European history. Nowadays, the time around 18th century is often referred to as the Age of Reason or the Age of Enlightenment. It was a time characterized by an intellectual and philosophical movement emphasizing reason, science, and individual rights over tradition and superstition. It was a movement in which Voltaire played such an essential role that I often use the term the Age of Voltaire instead of using the Age of Reason in both my philosophy classes and history classes. And I use this term for very good reasons. First, Voltaire was a champion for civil rights. He fought for freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and a fair trial. He criticized the aristocracy and the monarchy, advocating for a society based on reason and moral law rather than tradition and dogma. In particular, he hated and denounced the regime of French society of his time. Secondly, as I mentioned earlier, he also criticized the Catholic Church, arguing that individuals should be free to practice their own religion or have no religion at all. For him, reason was the key to understanding the world and improving society. Finally, which is even more important, through his writings, which were widely read, Voltaire popularized the Enlightenment ideals among the broader public. Although I emphasize his role in the Enlightenment movement, I have to say that Voltaire was a man of his time. He was a strong advocate for individual liberties and freedom of thought, but his views on human equality were complex. For him, people of different social classes were not fully equal. In fact, he regarded himself as an elitist and saw poor people as ignorant, foolish, and unenlightened. For the same reason, Voltaire distrusted democracy and favored an enlightened despot or a strong constitutional monarch. According to him, only a reasonable monarch with the advice from the enlightened people would prevent society from being endangered by irrationality of ordinary people. Voltaire wrote in a critical and sarcastic way, which often got him into trouble with the authorities. In 1717, he was arrested and put into a prison for almost 1 year because he wrote a sarcastic poem about an incestuous relationship between a father and his daughter. He even voluntarily exiled to England to escape further arrests and imprisonment. His experience of living in England from 1726 to 1729 turned out to be an important period in his life, exposing him to the English constitutional monarchy, greater freedom of speech and religion, and the works of influential thinkers such as John Locke. In fact, his life in England provided the basis for one of his most famous books, Letters to the English, in which he discussed English culture, society, and government. This book often reminded me of another book, Democracy in America, written by Alexis de Tocqueville, and which I have read many times. In that book, Tocqueville, who was French, talked about American culture and political systems based on his experience of living in America. Voltaire once said of himself as a man who wrote to act, and I certainly think so. This is actually another reason why I call the Age of Enlightenment the Age of Voltaire. Through his writings, he called on people to break with the past and change the way they thought and behaved, and fight everything he was fighting: superstition, intolerance, and irrational behavior. He was truly an active champion for the movement. Voltaire was also a great stylist, often using humorous and witty language to express deep philosophical ideas and criticize social ills. In addition to the sentences I quoted at the beginning of this video, his other most famous quotes also include, "Common sense is not so common. Doubt is not a pleasant condition, but certainty is absurd." Perhaps the one that I personally find most impressive is this: "Every man is guilty of all the good he did not do." What a brilliant statement! I couldn't agree more. We are not only responsible for the things we do, but also for the things we don't do. What it implies is that every one of us has a moral responsibility to do good whenever it is possible. Well, that is all for today. As always, thank you for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.